Ready? Okay, break. It's time for the High School Huddle. Your host, Jordan Hirsh, is getting set to break down all the action on the local gridirons in Bucks and Mercer Counties. Stats, conversation, inside analysis. It's all here on the High School Huddle, proudly brought to you by the Capital Health System and Anthony Petsis and Associates right now on WBCB 1490 AM and 107.3 FM.
Hello and welcome everybody into another installment of the High School Huddle. I am your host, Jordan Hirsh, and this week, folks, we have a YouTube and website exclusive show here on the High School Huddle, only on YouTube, WBCB Sports, and our website, WBCB1490.com. We will be back on the air on WBCB 1490 AM, 107.3 FM next week from 4 to 5, but despite the fact we ain't on the radio station side today, we've still got a very loaded show. We're going to be talking Neshaminy and Pennsbury. How about the Skins bouncing back, getting a big-time win over one of the better programs in the area, an 18-14 victory over North Penn. Unfortunately for the Falcons, they fell 14-0 against now the top team in the Suburban 1 League in the Penn Ridge Rams. Going to be talking to Neshaminy head coach Nick Felus in just a little bit as his team, riding high off that win over North Penn, they now prepare for a date with Abington tomorrow at 7 o'clock. You can catch that game on the YouTube channel WBCB Sports. Also going to be previewing the game of the week over in Mercer County, Robbinsville taking on Ewing. This game has all the makings of an offensive showdown. It could be a shootout there in Ewing, so you're going to want to make sure to stay tuned for that, breaking down that matchup. And then at the end of the show, going to be talking to the head coach of the Hopewell Valley Bulldogs, Dave Caldwell. Coach Caldwell going to provide some very valuable insight on his squad that has bounced back from their Week 0 loss. They've blown out a couple of teams in Robbinsville, and Notre Dame beat them last week. You're going to want to make sure to stick around for that interview as well with the head coach of the Hopewell Valley Bulldogs, Dave Caldwell. But let's start where we always start on the show, and that's in Bucks County, and we're going to begin with those Neshaminy Skins after they beat North Penn 18-14 to improve to 3-1 on the season, 1-0 in National Division play, in a big win last Friday at Heartbreak Ridge. Talk about a bounce back, right? After a pretty shocking loss to Cheltenham a couple weeks ago in their home opener, Neshaminy, they had a lot to clean up, and boy, oh boy, did they. The Skins, they beat previously undefeated North Penn, just the second time they had done so since 2013. North Penn, they entered the game ranked number 1 in the Suburban 1 League by S1Insider.com, also number 2 in Bucks County by the Courier-Times. This is a North Penn squad that has just rolled through the SOL in recent seasons. Neshaminy's not the only team that had really struggled to beat them over the last decade, potentially a program-altering win for the Skins. And entering this game, the main storyline was really who was going to win the trenches battle on both sides of the football. Each team features big, physical, offensive, and defensive lines. And really from the opening kickoff, it was Neshaminy who showed the clear advantage in that department. They ran for 176 yards, kept the fearsome North Penn rushing attack under wraps for most of the contest. A team that likes to alternate backs, led by Matt Pownell, who's committed to Navy, really did a good job keeping him under wraps. Riley Gray, a shifty running back, the defensive line did a nice job handling him as well. But for the first half of this game, the teams really went back and forth. North Penn, they held a 14-12 lead at the break. But true to what Nick Felus said on the coaches' roundtable last week, when he talked about how his team prides themselves on being a fourth-quarter team, Neshaminy, they got the ball back early in the fourth after North Penn, their sophomore running back, Zion Smith, he fumbled in the red zone as North Penn was looking to take a 2-score lead early in the fourth quarter. And then Neshaminy, after not picking up a single first down during the third, They went on to march 92 yards, the big blow being a 41-yard touchdown strike from Michael Eckert to Nick Sassano, which capped off the drive. Eckert, he was surgical on that drive, completing 3 tight window throws on crossing routes. 2 of them went to Nick Sassano. The other one went to his twin brother, Mike. After the game, I had asked Eckert if it was safe to say that their team's confidence level grows in the fourth. He said, quote, "We work all year for the fourth quarter, and we were prepared today." He also dropped a neat quote in that interview on what the win meant to the program. He said, quote, "They don't think Neshaminy is what they used to be. We're going to change their minds about that." And I think that the win against North Penn certainly goes a long way into just determining what Neshaminy really is this season, that they are going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Suburban 1 League, not just in the National Division, but I believe in the league as a whole. Mentioned how good Michael Eckert was. Let's take a look at some of the stats from that game. Eckert, 11 of 17, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns through the air. His legs were a huge factor in this game as well. Carried the ball 17 times for 109 yards and a TD. He had the game-winning 39-yard carry. Nick Felus, I'm going to ask him about this play in our interview with him coming up next segment. 4th and 1, about 2.5 minutes left. Neshaminy had the ball on their own 28-yard line, and Nick Felus rolled the dice, trusted his quarterback, gave him the RPO, and Michael Eckert took full advantage as he found some open space and put the game on ice. Carter Klee, another nice game in the run department for him. 12 carries, 70 yards. Also caught 3 passes for 30 yards and a touchdown on a screen play to open the night. Nick Sassano, 2 catches, 53 yards and a touchdown. And the Sassano brothers, they were really both balling out on defense. Nick had 13 total tackles. Mike had 10. Mike Sassano also with 3 catches for 53 yards. And ho-hum, just another game with a sack for Corey Kenoy Webb. He's up to 6.5 on the season. He had 5 total tackles in that game as well. And this game, I think it's huge. Just because it happened on September 12th, that does not mean that this win could be one of the biggest of the year come late October. North Penn, they're always in contention at the top of the SOL National Division, securing the tiebreaker, getting a win in a game that basically everybody thought was going to be a loss. That could be a huge boost for this team come playoff time. This win, it also proves that Neshaminy is very much for real this season. Their 30-0 Week 1 win on the road against Emmaus, that seemed to indicate that something special could be brewing in Langhorne this year. But then after the Cheltenham loss, a lot of people, and myself included, we were left scratching our heads and just wondering how good this Neshaminy squad really was. And I'd say a win against one of, if not the top team in the area, shows that this team is capable of some special things this year. And they're going to look to continue this season, this special season that could be brewing. This week, they take on Abington, the Galloping Ghosts, tomorrow. You can catch myself and Rob Gilmore on the call for that on our YouTube page, WBCB Sports, at 7 o'clock. Pre-game will get you started around 6:45. But this week, Neshaminy, they're going to travel a couple exits down the turnpike. They're taking on Abington, who come into this game 1-3. The Skins have handled the Galloping Ghosts in the Max Preps era, which goes back to 2004, sporting a 20-4 record over AHS in that time period. Recently, that trend has stayed true. Neshaminy has won each of the last 3 matchups by a combined score of 101-22. They've got a pair of shutouts mixed in as well. Last season, Neshaminy cruised to a 37-0 smashing of Abington. Michael Eckert, they didn't need him all that much in that game, just 9 for 14, 92 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Skins' offense rushed for a total of 229 yards on 46 carries. All of that without Carter Klee, who was out with an injury at the time. In fact, 9 different Skins in that game registered a carry, including senior Jason Wilmot. He scored 2 touchdowns, rushed for 80 yards. Mike Sassano, he had a couple catches for 21 yards in that one. And then on defense, Owen Schwartz with a monster game on the defensive line. 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. And how about this? Neshaminy, they held Abington last season to just 82 total yards, including -5 through the air. At the time, their quarterback duo, the tandem of Antonio Ford and now this year's starting quarterback, Miles Yakis, who was a freshman last year, went just 1 for 9 with a pick. Abington ran just 33 total plays, picked up only 6 first downs. For comparison, the Skins, they ran 67 plays and had 20 first down pickups. But taking a look at the scouting report of the Galloping Ghosts this year, a bit better of a squad than what they had last season. Just 1-9 last year. They're off to a 1-3 start this season. Their lone win has come over Truman in week 2, 42-7. In their other games, they've been outscored 96-48 by Conrad Weiser in their week 1 game. Then kind of kept it close with Ben Salem, one of the better teams in the area. Lost that one 24-11. And then they were trounced last week at the hands of CB West, 43-15. But they're led by sophomore quarterback. He's at the forefront of this rebuilding program. Like I mentioned, Miles Yakis. This season, he's 46 of 83, 737 yards, 9 touchdowns, just 3 picks. Not really a mobile guy. He's rushed just 7 times this year, but he's averaging 16 yards per completion through the air. He's got a big arm. The ground game, not all that worrisome. They only average 3.6 yards per carry. Their 2 leading rushers are junior Kai Taylor, 13 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown, and senior Braylon Peterkin, who's got just 30 carries for 61 yards, so just a little over 2 yards per carry for the senior Peterkin. In the receiving game is where they threaten a little bit more. They're senior heavy. They've got standouts in Aiden Turner, who's got 275 yards and 5 touchdowns. Antonio Ford, who's now playing at wide receiver this season, 8 catches, 130 yards, and 2 TDs. And then another senior, Jake Leach, 12 catches for 154 yards. Their defense has only totaled 3 sacks, but they have forced 6 takeaways, 2 of them coming from senior defensive back Cameron Powell. So Neshaminy, they can't overlook this matchup. Their next 4 games are against CB West, Penridge, CB East, and CB South. So as long as they take this game as seriously as all the others, which I believe they will, because Council Rock North, that game, it really proved that Nick Felus, he's not going to let his team experience a major letdown. As long as they don't have something drastic happen in this game, they should be just fine. I expect a big showing from the defensive line, Corey Kenoy-Webb and Owen Schwartz. I think they're going to be able to eat, and it's going to make it easy on this offense, who, in all likelihood, they're going to continue to establish their rushing attack with Eckert and Klee. Establish your dominance, Neshaminy, and this game, in all likelihood, will not be close. All right, so Neshaminy, one of the better teams in the area. Now let's take a look at those Pennsbury Falcons, really struggling to open the season. Last week they took on Penridge and lost 14-0. They fall to 0-4 on the year, 0-1 in National Division play. Now Penridge is an incredibly difficult opponent. They are now ranked number 1 in the SOL by Suburban1Insider.com after their win last week over Pennsbury, coupled with North Penn's loss against Neshaminy. The Falcons' defense, though, they played well enough for Pennsbury to win this game, held the Rams, who average over 30 points per game on the season, to their lowest point total of the year. But Pennsbury, they're now in a very difficult part of their schedule, where pulling a major upset is perhaps the only way they can eke out a victory. The one bright spot is that in order to do that, you have to keep some of these higher scoring teams at bay, and the Pennsbury defense is good enough to do just that. The biggest question mark is, will the offense just be able to put it all together for a game for the Falcons to perhaps wreck one of these top teams' seasons? But the task offensively, it does not get any easier. Star running back Jordan Brenzinger, he's on the shelf. He's missed the last 2 games with injury. It remains to be seen when he will be back. But for Pennsbury to muster enough offense to upset one of these Central Bucks schools, Brenzinger, he has to be on the field, and he also has to be playing at 100%. So Pennsbury, they continue their schedule this week, tomorrow, 7 o'clock. Chris Ermer, Gus Barber, Ben Goldstein, they will be on the call from Central Bucks East. The Falcons, this begins their stretch of 3 straight games against the Central Bucks schools. They're taking on the Patriots tomorrow, like I mentioned, at 7. Pennsbury, they've won each of the last 3 meetings with CB East, including a 17-14 victory against them last season. And the all-time series between these two programs, it goes back to 2018. They've played 7 times, and 5 of them have been decided by one score. So taking a look at the scouting report for the Patriots this year, they're a much improved squad. They won only 4 games last season. They're already off to a 3-1 start. And the Patriots play a style of football very similar to the Armed Forces schools, where they're going to ground and pound with a heavy dose of runs off tackle, meaning the Pennsbury defensive line, especially their defensive ends and even linebackers, will have to be ready in this game. The Patriots, they've only thrown the ball 31 times this season for 173 yards. Meanwhile, they're nearing 1,000 on the ground, currently sitting at 858. Their main back is junior Michael Price, who has 69 carries, 451 yards, and 6 trips to the end zone, including 2 games this year of 100-plus yards on the ground. He actually had 18 carries for 74 yards and 2 tutties last season in the game against Pennsbury. The Falcons, though, did a very good job overall against the CB East rushing attack in that game, held them to just 81 total rushing yards, 214 total yards of offense. But looking at this year's squad again, including Michael Price, they're also led by a couple of sophomores in the run game. Asher Green and Hunter Pulford are also utilized heavily on the ground as well. So Pennsbury's run defense, they're going to have to be on their A game to keep this one close, and perhaps get a few bounces and some big plays from their offense as well. It's no secret that a lot is going to have to go right for PHS to pick up this win on the road. But one thing is for sure, this is a team that has proven they can at least play respectable football against the top teams, and if they get a few bounces and break a few runs, they could derail the season of a top SOL National Division team, with this division being as tight as it's shaping up to be. Pennsbury, all they need is a couple of things to go their way, and maybe, just maybe, they could pull one of these really big upsets. They're going to be looking to do so tomorrow, 7 o'clock, when they take on the Central Bucks East Patriots. You can catch that game on our YouTube page, WBCB Sports. But all right, I talked about them earlier on in this segment. Those Neshaminy Skins coming off a big 18-14 victory over the North Penn Knights. And do not go anywhere, because when we come back, going to be talking to the head coach of the Neshaminy Skins, Nick Felus. Ask him about his squad, how they were able to pull off that win last week. Get a preview of the game against Abington this week. Make sure you stay tuned for that. Nick Felus on the other side of this break here on WBCB Sports and on our website, WBCB1490.com. Today's show is proudly sponsored by Anthony Petsis and Associates, voted the best financial advisory firm in Bucks County for 13 years by the Bucks County Courier-Times. Anthony Petsis and Associates delivers people-centered advice, empowering you to take control of your financial future with confidence. Their firm is committed to helping your family build and preserve wealth for the next 100 years. If you're interested in becoming a client of the top-rated financial advisory firm in Bucks County, please contact Anthony Petsis and Associates at 215-968-6638. That's 215-968-6638. You can also visit their website at apetsis.com. Anthony Petsis and Associates. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
Capital Health's primary care network continues to grow, bringing its extensive option of locations to your neighborhood. Whether you're scheduling a wellness checkup or not feeling well, advanced medicine starts with a Capital Health primary care doctor at locations near you in Mercer, Bucks, and Burlington counties. To find a Capital Health primary care location that's convenient for you, visit capitalmedicalgroup.org. That's capitalmedicalgroup.org.
You're listening to the High School Huddle on WBCB 1490 AM and 107.3 FM. The High School Huddle is proudly brought to you by the Capital Health System and Anthony Petsis and Associates. Now back to your host, Jordan Hirsh.
Welcome back to the High School Huddle. I am your host, Jordan Hirsh, and now on the line, I've got the head coach of the 3-1 Neshaminy Skins, Nick Felus. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing very well. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me. I'm sorry.
All right, thanks for coming on. You guys, of course, you bounced back big time against North Penn last week, suffered that surprising loss against Cheltenham in the home opener. The win last week, though, against North Penn, Neshaminy, just their second win against the Knights since 2013. Just how big was it for your team to get that victory?
We talked about it in our program. It's a big game because it's the next one. And we were disappointed on how we played the week before. So our kids really, they locked in, and all week we really had a great week of preparation, and we wanted to make sure, that week we put our best foot forward on Friday, and we challenged them to play all three phases of the game, and I think you saw some parts of offense, defense, special teams. We started to put some things together, and we got the result that we wanted.
Now, I got to ask you about the 4th and 1 decision at the end of that game. Up by 4, back at your own 28-yard line. Of course, a first down wins it. If you punt, you make North Penn have to drive all the way for a touchdown. The defense was playing really well in the second half. What went into that decision to go for it there?
There's a few things. The 1 and 1, we wanted to make sure we thought about it. So, we wanted to try to draw them off sides, call a timeout. We wanted to get in the formation to see how they were going to line up to it. And then we just, talked it over to coaches, the players. And, I looked up at the clock, and I was just like, we can't give them the ball back. We have a lot of confidence in our offensive line, our H-back, and definitely the way our quarterback was playing, we weren't going to take the ball out of his hands. The ball was going to stay in my hands. And we actually, if you watch the film, we came out in a different formation. And we just had a ton of confidence in our guys. And, they wanted nothing more but to go for the win and get the first down. And the way they executed the play was outstanding. I mean, we've run that play for 2 months, and the way they executed it was just outstanding. All credit goes to the players on that. It was their effort and just being able to understand how to close the game out. We're just so proud of them.
Now, what adjustments did you guys make during the week last week? Because, of course, against Cheltenham, wasn't all that pretty, but to be able to come back 7 days later and pick up your biggest win of the season, just what went into all that?
It was just a matter of, I felt like we were a little bit tired going into the Cheltenham game, and that's on me as a head coach. So we had to scale a few things back as far as we wanted to make sure we had our legs. So we wanted to really emphasize, let's get our legs back, and let's make sure we focus on a few things on each side of the ball. So, defensively, we didn't tackle well in space. We didn't gang tackle, and we wanted to make sure we worked on that all week, especially against North Penn with the running back and receivers and the type of skill they have. And I thought our guys were very aggressive on defense. And offensively, we wanted to be able to spread them out a little bit more and take advantage of some of the receivers and skilled guys we have. And we really put together a game plan that I felt like we executed very well. So offensively, we wanted to execute better. We wanted to execute the play that was called, and we wanted to be able to make plays on both sides of the ball in key situations, and we did that. But we also did it on special teams as well. So, it wasn't mind-shattering adjustments that we make. We just kind of really shifted our focus a little bit. And, sometimes, you can learn a lot from a loss, and we did. And we turned the page quickly, but all credit to our coaching staff and our players just for buying into what we were preaching all week.
And now, one of the big storylines going into that game last week, it was the battle of the trenches. Neshaminy, North Penn, both very talented up front on both sides of the ball. I thought you guys won that battle really offensively and defensively. What do you have to say about those two position groups after last week's game?
I'll tell you what, if you come watch us practice, our offensive line coach, Jacob Kelly, does an outstanding job, and our defensive line coach, Ed Mitchum, they're getting after our guys every day at practice. And, they're so sound with technique with our guys. And, our guys really play with relentless effort. So it starts up front, but it starts at practice with how detailed they are and how much we can get out of each player. And they just keep going every day at practice. And we do a lot of good versus good situations. Some of the guys that don't play both ways, they're not coming off the field at practice, and you see that we're kind of starting to reap the benefits of that.
Now, one issue at the beginning of the season that seems to have been cleaned up is the amount of penalties you guys have taken each game. We've seen that number come down pretty significantly here over the last 2 weeks. Is that an area of the game you guys have really honed in on getting better in practice?
Yeah, absolutely, especially offensively. It starts with being able to get the signal from the sideline. We're a no-huddle team. We try to switch the tempo up, and we did that on Friday night. But we have to be able to be locked in, get the signal, line up, play fast, not think as much. And we really simplified a few things offensively, and we just really paid a lot more attention to the details. We spent it the last 2 weeks. The small things are the big thing. Great job of addressing they arise at practice. But our players, they're so coachable right now that they make sure, what we're trying to get accomplished, that they're doing it.
Now, as the season has gone along, Michael Eckert's legs have become more of a focal point for the offense. Is that a trend we can expect to see continue?
Yes. When you look at the offense that we run, it's structured around the quarterback and specifically a dual threat quarterback. So the more help he can give us with his legs, the more things it opens up for Carter Klee and our receivers and everything that makes the offense go. Like I felt like on Friday night he took over the game at times for us, and those are the type of games that him as a senior that he can play, and he's really done a great job of understanding everything about the offense, all his reads and everything like that. He has a great command of the offense. So, yeah, his legs are definitely a huge part of what we're trying to do on offense.
And defensively, can you just talk a little bit about Corey Kenoy-Webb and what's made him so successful this season? Because he's really gotten off to a flying start. 6.5 sacks, 10 tackles for loss. What's made him so effective?
Yeah, we just talked about a little bit ago about our practice habits and some of the guys that don't play both ways. Corey doesn't play on offense, but if you come watch us practice, Corey's not coming off the field. And if there's a situation where he's not on a special team, he's down with the defensive line coach working on his craft. We're so proud of him. He works so hard, and what he does from a defensive standpoint helps our offensive line. So our offensive line has a chance to go against one of the best pass rushers in the league. So Corey's effort and Corey's work ethic is second to none, and he's done a real outstanding job. And like I said, credit goes to our defensive line coach, Ed Mitchum. He does a great job with those guys up front.
And both of the Sassano brothers, Mike and Nick, have played tremendously well on both sides of the football. What's it like to coach them, and how competitive are they, not just maybe against the opponents, but against each other perhaps as well?
Oh, they're fiery, that's for sure. You can tell, sometimes at practice it looks like it was what they were doing, drawing some things up in their backyard. But they're football players. They're very savvy players. They're fierce competitors. They're playmakers. When the game's on the line, it's never too big for them. They just settle in and they just make plays. And like I said, they practice with relentless effort. And, it's a cool thing to be able to coach those two. They're such great kids. They work so hard. And, you're seeing on both sides of the ball that, they have the ability to make huge plays for us. And they've done that. And we're expecting even more out of them as the season continues and as they get more comfortable in the offense and the defensive schemes that we're running.
And then finally, this week, you guys go up against Abington on the road. Obviously, on paper, not as talented a team as North Penn, but still have some very capable players. What have you seen on film out of the Galloping Ghosts this week as you prepare to face them tomorrow night?
They're very aggressive. They're very physical up front. They have some speed guys up front that can give you problems if you're not locked in and you're not detailed. We just got to take care of what we can take care of, and our attitude, our work ethic, and just like the weeks that we've played well, it comes down to offensively making sure we execute, making sure we get average about 4.5 yards on first down and put ourselves in good situations, moving the chains. And then defensively, we got to make sure we get off the field on third down. Obviously, you got to stop the run, but we're going to keep emphasizing the same things that we've been emphasizing the last few weeks that maybe we haven't done well. We're going to tackle in space. We got to be opportunistic on defense. And like I said, Abington, they do some really good things on both sides of the ball, and on the road. So there's a couple factors, but it really comes down to sure we focus on the things that we can control, and that's our attitude, our work ethic, how hard we play, and we're going to make sure we do that Friday night.
All right, Coach. Well, thank you so much for taking some time out of your schedule to come on the show today. I really appreciate it, and good luck against Abington tomorrow night.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Well, there you have it. That was Neshaminy Skins head coach Nick Felus talking about his team. Also a little bit about their game this week against Abington. Tomorrow, 7 o'clock, myself, Rob Gilmore, will be on the call from Abington High School for that one. Now, do not go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to the other side of the Delaware River, talking about the West Jersey Football League and the Mercer County Game of the Week between Robbinsville and Ewing. All that and more coming up next here on the High School Huddle.
Capital Health's primary care network continues to grow, bringing its extensive option of locations to your neighborhood. Whether you're scheduling a wellness checkup or not feeling well, advanced medicine starts with a Capital Health primary care doctor at locations near you in Mercer, Bucks, and Burlington counties. To find a Capital Health primary care location that's convenient for you, visit capitalmedicalgroup.org. That's capitalmedicalgroup.org.
You're listening to the High School Huddle on WBCB 1490 AM and 107.3 FM. The High School Huddle is proudly brought to you by the Capital Health System and Anthony Petsis and Associates. Now back to your host, Jordan Hirsh.
Welcome back into the High School Huddle. I am your host, Jordan Hirsh. Big shout out and an even bigger thank you to Neshaminy head coach Nick Felus for taking some time out of his very busy schedule to join me on the show last segment. Gave a lot of very valuable insight as his squad prepares for a date with Abington tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. You can catch that game on our YouTube channel right here, WBCB Sports. A reminder, today's show only on YouTube and on the website, WBCB1490.com. We will be back on the radio side, WBCB 1490 AM 107.3 FM next week. And also want to give a quick plug, because if you haven't heard, WBCB Sports has a new Instagram, WBCB_SN. Make sure you go drop a follow if you haven't already. Posting a lot of high school sports content over there. Highlights, previews of games, coaches roundtable, advertisements as well, along with a whole bunch of other stuff, post-game interviews. You don't want to miss anything that's going on over on our Instagram page, WBCB_SN. By the way, you could also follow us on X, the same handle, WBCB_SN, over there. But all right, enough of the shameless advertisements. It's time to jump across the river, swim, jump, whatever you so choose, whatever your athletic ability allows. And let's talk about the game of the week in Mercer County between Robbinsville and Ewing. It's going to get going tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And this game, it features, by the way, the Blue Devils, who come in at 1-2. The Ravens coming in at 2-1. This has all the makings of a shootout. Two very high-powered offenses going up against a pair of defenses that have really struggled to begin the year. This game was a true offensive showdown last season. Robbinsville squeaking by in overtime, pulling out a 34-33 win. Will Raftery, he was the hero in that game. He caught the game-winning touchdown pass in OT. Ewing actually would come back and score a touchdown later in the first overtime session. They ended up trying to go for 2 in the win, but failed. Gavin Yablonowitz threw for 250 yards and 3 touchdowns, also 3 picks in that game. Meanwhile, the Blue Devils, they did whatever they wanted on the ground, ran for 354 total yards. In fact, 4 different players scored a touchdown on the ground for Ewing in that one. One of them being their leading rusher this year, Josh Missick. We're going to talk about him in just a little bit. He carried the ball 18 times for 110 yards and a score in this matchup last season. These teams, they also played an instant classic back in 2021. Robbinsville emerged with a 43-41 win after trailing by 21 points in the third quarter in that one. They roared back in the fourth. Ravens, by the way, they've won 4 consecutive games over Ewing. They've scored 26 or more points in all 4 of those games. So how about we start with this year's Ravens, who they smoked West Windsor-Plainsboro United last week, 56-7. They feature the most talented passing game in the area, and honestly, I think they're the most fun team to watch in all of Mercer County. Looking at some of their season stats to date, junior quarterback Gavin Yablonowitz could very well be the most talented quarterback in Mercer County. He's 58 of 83, 754 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Fish and I, we talked about it on our show Friday Night Hype last week, whether or not we believed he could reach 3,000 yards through the air this season. Didn't necessarily need to throw the ball a whole lot. He was taken out during the West Windsor game last week, so that 3,000-yard mark certainly a little bit more in jeopardy after last week, but 2,000 very much in reach for Yablonowitz. Ricky Bender, they've got a whole bunch of wide receivers. Ricky Bender being their top guy, 16 catches, 202 yards, 4 tutties. Tim Cabral has 8 receptions for 123 yards and a touchdown this year. Alex Giordano, who really grew into his body over the offseason. Head coach Andrew Patterson, very high on Giordano coming into this year, and he's got 10 catches, 138 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Also, Ryder Haran with 11 receptions, and also the same amount of receiving yards as Giordano. Each have 138 and 2 touchdowns as well. Will Raftery, 5 catches, 79 yards. He's also one of their main running backs with 20 carries, 99 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Connor Skillman, he mixes in the ground game as well. 12 rushes, 85 yards, 2 touchdowns for Skillman on the ground, playing a much bigger role with the varsity squad this season is Connor Skillman. This offense, they basically have done whatever they've wanted this year, right? Averaging 39.3 points per game. However, it's the defense that has really struggled at times. Their first 2 games of the year, they gave up over 300 yards on the ground in both of them. 394, in fact, in their loss against Hopewell Valley, Week 1. They allowed nearly 500 total yards of offense in their Week 0 overtime win at South Brunswick. And then they did allow Hopewell Valley to eclipse that 500 total yard mark in Week 1 in a 59-21 loss. So Robbinsville, their offense is good enough to where they can legitimately carry this team to a deep playoff run, but the defense has to at least be serviceable. I will say that unit took a nice step forward last week. They gave up just 143 total yards of offense to West Windsor-Plainsboro United, but let's face it, that United team does not have the same level of talent as many of the other teams around the area and on Robbinsville's remaining schedule, including this Ewing squad. So how about we talk about the Blue Devils now? They began 0-2 due partially to a very difficult schedule to open the season. They kept it close with Burlington City in Week 0. They ultimately fell 30-25, and then they got shut out in Week 1, 28-0 on the road against Delran. However, you got to give credit to this Blue Devils team. They did not get down on themselves, and last week they delivered head coach Al-Majid Hutchins his first win by the skin of their teeth. Pulled out a 21-20 victory on the road against previously undefeated Princeton last week. NJ.com does not feature the stats, by the way, for the Delran game, so some of the stats you may see on the website are a bit incomplete. But in the other 2 contests, senior quarterback Ryan Gregg, he's passed for over 200 yards in each of those games. He had only done that 1 time previously in his 4-year varsity career. Gregg has already surpassed his passing yard total from last season, and oh, by the way, he's closing in on his career high of 753 from his sophomore campaign. Ewing has only played 3 games this year. Gregg very much on track to post 1,000 passing yards for the first time in his 4-year career. But in recent seasons, this Ewing team, they haven't really been known for their passing attack. But Al-Majid Hutchins, their new head coach, He's really done a fantastic job so far of unlocking Ryan Gregg's full potential as a thrower. Gregg has a couple very talented wide receivers, which always helps. One of them being senior Sam Simpkins, who's seemingly been at Ewing forever. He's already surpassed his career high in receiving yards after only just 3 weeks. And also senior wide receiver Chris Thomas, who kind of came out of nowhere. He's turned himself into one of the main big play threats in Mercer County. By the way, he's also one of the top players on a very talented Ewing Blue Devils basketball team as well. This, by the way, for Thomas, it's his first season up with the varsity squad as a senior. He's making an immediate impact in this Ewing offense. But do not worry, the Blue Devils still feature an exceptional ground game as well, spearheaded by senior Josh Missick. I told you guys we would get to him at some point. He should be the main focal point of the offense again this week, going up against a deficient run defense in Robbinsville. The 2 games where stats were made available for Missick, he's averaging 6 yards per carry. But similar to Robbinsville, the Blue Devils, their main downside is their defense. It's been a problem this season. They're allowing 26 points per game. However, they have been slowly improving as the season has gone along. Now, Robbinsville does present easily the toughest test for the defense all season. That's why I believe that these scores are going to be run well up into the 30s, maybe even the 40s, right? These are 2 very high-powered offenses, 2 defenses that have not really found a rhythm so far this season. This game truly does have all the makings of a good old-fashioned shootout. By the way, you could tune in from 4 to 5 p.m. on WBCB Sports, our YouTube channel. Also on the radio side, WBCB 1490 AM, 107.3 FM. That's tomorrow from 4 to 5 p.m. Myself and Rich Fisher, we've got you for Friday Night Hype. We're going to dive even deeper into this game. We're going to see if Fish agrees with me this week. He didn't end up agreeing with me last week over what the game of the week truly was. I called that it was Notre Dame taking on Hopewell. He said that it was Heightstown taking on Steiner. And we actually really both ended up being wrong on that front, because the game of the week truly did end up being Ewing against Princeton, with the Blue Devils pulling out that 1-point victory. It is worth noting in that game, by the way, Ewing's defense did not allow a touchdown. Princeton got a couple of touchdowns in terms of two pick sixes by Ellington Hines in that one. Carmine Carusone kicked a couple field goals. So the defense certainly on the upward trend for the Ewing Blue Devils. So make sure you tune in to Friday Night Hype. We're talking about this game as well as all the other action going on in Mercer County, the West Jersey Football League action. Going to be previewing 6 other games. I'm not going to tease them for you right now. I'm just going to make everybody have to go over and tune in to that show. Also going to be talking more Pennsbury and Neshaminy tomorrow from 4 to 5 p.m. on Friday Night Hype with myself and Rich Fisher. But all right, coming up next, we're going to stay in Mercer County. We're going to take it away from this Robbinsville-Ewing game, and we're going to talk about one of the other high-powered offenses in Mercer County, that being those Hopewell Valley Bulldogs. Coming up next, going to be speaking with their head coach, Dave Caldwell. Hopewell Valley off to a 2-1 start. They've bounced back very nicely, a couple of blowout wins after their week 0 loss against Montgomery. They take on Nottingham this week, so make sure you stay tuned. Coming up after this here on the High School Huddle, head coach of the Hopewell Valley Bulldogs, Dave Caldwell. He's on the other side. After this break, you're listening to the High School Huddle on WBCB Sports on YouTube and on our website, WBCB1490.com. Today's show is proudly sponsored by Anthony Petsis and Associates, voted the best financial advisory firm in Bucks County for 13 years by the Bucks County Courier-Times. Anthony Petsis and Associates delivers people-centered advice, empowering you to take control of your financial future with confidence. Their firm is committed to helping your family build and preserve wealth for the next 100 years. If you're interested in becoming a client of the top-rated financial advisory firm in Bucks County, please contact Anthony Petsis and Associates at 215-968-6638. That's 215-968-6638. You can also visit their website at apetsis.com. Anthony Petsis Petsis and Associates. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
You're listening to the High School Huddle on WBCB 1490 AM and 107.3 FM. The High School Huddle is proudly brought to you by the Capital Health System and Anthony Petsis and Associates. Now back to your host, Jordan Hirsh.
Welcome back to the High School Huddle. I'm your host, Jordan Hirsh, here on YouTube, WBCB Sports, also on our website, WBCB1490.com. Quick reminder that the show will be back on air on WBCB 1490 AM 107.3 FM next Thursday from 4 to 5. But on the line right now, I've got another very special guest, Hopewell Valley Bulldog head coach, Dave Caldwell. Coach, how you doing today?
Not bad. How are you?
Doing great. Just want to ask you some quick questions about your team. 2-1 now to begin the year. In your Week 0 game, you suffered a loss that I think not many people saw coming, but you've now responded with 2 blowout wins against a couple teams that have some real firepower on their roster. Just how happy have you been with the way your team has responded to that loss against Montgomery?
I mean, opening up the season with a loss is difficult, but I think it's also a great opportunity to sort of see where you're at and learn from the mistakes that you make and improve. Montgomery is obviously a much better team than they were last year. Not an excuse. We had a lot of new starters, but that's fine. So did they. But I'm just happy to see that our guys are improving. The mistakes that we made Week 1 or Week 0, as you call it, we're not seeing the same mistakes. We're just seeing continued development in fundamentals and discipline. And we're also, learning and adapting, our schemes a little bit to our strengths. So, I'm happy with the progression we're making.
Well, and the guy that has really led the charge so far is junior running back Ethan Valenza. 308 rushing yards in his varsity debut against Robbinsville, added another 156 last week against Notre Dame. What's allowed him to burst onto the scene? Because he really went from a guy that nobody was paying attention to now being the main focal point of your offense.
Yeah, I mean, last year he was injured for the entire season. This preseason, he ended up breaking his nose in a scrimmage, so he did not play versus Montgomery. Not sure if it would have made a difference, so I don't want to take any credit away from Montgomery. I think it definitely would have helped us, but no, he loves football. He's a tireless worker. He has a goal that he wants to play in college. So, and he's learning our offense. Up front, our guys are doing a great job getting better up front, understanding their roles, communicating, staying on their blocks, finishing their blocks, and Ethan is sort of trying to develop that feel for the game and feel for what they're doing up front too. So I think his vision, his ball security, he did fumble the first game, but he's working on that. That's something that's critical to any running back. He's definitely a threat to go the distance anytime he gets the ball.
And then aside from Valenza, Lucas Hemmer, he's played very well as the RB2 with a couple touchdowns, 186 rushing yards. He, of course, came into the season maybe expecting to be that number 1 guy. How has he taken to the adjustment of not getting as many touches as perhaps initially you thought?
Oh, he's. I mean, initially we wanted Ethan. It was a competition, but Ethan sort of, took over that job as a running back early on. But with his injury, we needed Luke to step in. And, Luke's a big kid. Luke is 6'1", 210 pounds, and one of the faster kids on our team. But he's critical in our special teams play. He's averaging about 43 yards a punt. We don't want to punt much, but when we do, we want to pin teams inside the 20, and he's done that. And he's also a great linebacker for us as well, actually a linebacker and defensive line. He can put his hand on the ground and play the defensive line, or he can stand up. We can move him back as a linebacker. So he's a guy that we would love to play, get the most out of him as we can, probably on one side of the ball, and and limit his carries a little bit on offense. But he's always ready. He's a workhorse. He's a tireless worker, like I said, and he could do both. But with Ethan Valenza back there, I think he'll take majority of the carries, and the old 1-2 punch, like you said, is great to have Luke Hemmer.
And then your new quarterback, Grayson Vlasic, hasn't really put up the flashiest of numbers in his first 3 games as starter, but he's done a nice job running the offense. Not turning the ball over is a big thing, especially with a first-year quarterback. What have you liked out of his game so far, and then how do you project his development as we get closer to the midway point of the season?
I mean, Grayson's been playing football probably since he's 4 years old. I've had him for a very long time, and his older brother. He's a competitor. He's a great leader. He understands our offense. He communicates well with all the rest of the guys. He's crafty. He enjoys, moving his feet. He enjoys running the ball as well. I think you're going to see a big improvement throughout the season with Grayson. I think once we established the line of scrimmage in the previous 2 games, we sort of, maintained our run game. Obviously my offense coordinator would like to be more balanced, so would I. So I think that's our goal, is to continue to develop up front, continue to play consistent football up front. And also, I think as you're consistent up front, teams are going to start loading the box, bringing safeties down, things like that. And so Grayson's going to have to be able to, throw the ball, and that, which I'm 100% confident in his ability to do that.
And then in the receiving game, 2 of the guys he's been throwing the ball to a lot, Jude Berman and Mike Whitlock, they've really emerged as the top 2 guys. Can you just talk a little bit about those 2 players and their production so far?
Yeah, I think in the first game, I'm not sure if Mike had too many catches, or in the second game he had too many receptions, rather. And we made an effort, made it a priority to get his hands, get him the ball, because he's good in open space. He's athletic. He's a third of 4 boys. A couple of the other boys one of his older brothers played for us, so he's super athletic. He can do a lot for us. We're just asking him to be a great receiver, to catch the ball in space, get those extra yards. He can also run behind his pads well. And Jude Berman, I personally think Jude Berman is the best athlete in the county. You just look at his numbers already. He's already got 2 kickoff returns, 1 for 95 yards, 1 for 96 yards. He's also got 2 interceptions, 1, I think it's returned 54 yards for a touchdown. He's also probably one of our better running backs as well. But he's been a 3-year starting corner for us. He's a lockdown corner. He can sort of shut off that side of the field for us, and he's not afraid to stick his nose in there. And if the ball ends up, getting to the edge, he can tackle well as well. So, he's personally he's probably the best athlete in the county. He's a danger to go the distance to whenever he touches the ball.
There you go. Very high praise for sure. But defensively, you guys have done a nice job now getting to the quarterback, averaging over 3 sacks per game. What has allowed your pass rush to be so effective through the first 3 weeks?
I think it's our defensive coordinator, Kevin Clay, and the rest of the staff, and the job they do with our entire defense. I think our defensive line, we return the majority of our defensive line. We also rotate guys in through there. We have 2 guys that are looking to play in college, have taken college visits on the weekend, some great high academic Division III schools in Carter Horvath and Luke Hemmer. So they're on the defensive line. You also have Jagger Enderly, who's a junior, and you also have Gavin Barker, who's a sophomore. So, we rotate 3 to 4 guys through that defensive line. They play relentlessly. They play with great strength and great speed. They get off blocks well. They do their job well, and linebackers end up filling up those gaps and doing their reads as they're supposed to do. But that's just a reflection of our defense buying in, and our coaches, consistently coaching and making sure they're prepared. So it's a great combination.
And now many of your starters this season, they were backups on the team last year that won 10 games, went to the Central Jersey Group 3 semis. Do you feel that them getting to watch and experience a winning culture last year, and really the last few years, has helped your team in getting off to a good start again this season?
Absolutely. I think they know, and they speak it. That's a part of our culture. It's a part of our standard. They buy in. I mean, if they're not playing another sport, they're in the weight room. We ask a lot of them, but it's not a lot when they're committed, because they know that's what it takes to win games, and that's what it takes to compete. So, our current senior class, they played in the second half of a lot of games last year, and now it's their turn to carry on the legacy that they were given by the previous seniors, and create their own legacy based on those standards and the culture that has been established here. And they've done a great job with it. And like I said, losing that first game and just, holding to the standard that they have set, and that the previous graduating classes have set. They've done a great job with that and looking to improve every single day.
And then finally, you guys taking on Nottingham this week. A team that's really struggled to open the season. Their starting quarterback, Dante Vasquez, he was out last week due to injury. They do have some talent on their roster, perhaps none more than a running back / defensive back, James Rumpf, who had a big game last week. What have you seen on film from the North Stars as you prepare to do battle with them on Saturday?
I mean, Hopewell Nottingham is always a tough game. I mean, they're big up front. They've got a lot of talent and athleticism at the skill position. They're coached well by Coach McGuire. They're always dangerous. And we went back and you watched that game where they played Burlington Township, and Burlington Township's now ranked 18th in the state. And the score is not indicative of how close that game was. I think it was 14-7. And they may have thrown an interception in the end zone. It very easily should have been a 14-14 game at the half. So they are always a dangerous team. They always end up coming up with big plays, and they play hard. They play hard and they play physical. So this game it's you throw out the records in this game, like they say, but they're a tough team.
Well, Coach, I really appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate all the insight you shared here as well. Thank you so much for hopping on with me today, and good luck against Nottingham this week.
I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Well, there you have it. That was Hopewell Valley Bulldog head coach Dave Caldwell. Big shout out, big thank you to him for taking some time out of his busy schedule to join me here on the show this afternoon. That's about all the time we've got left here on our YouTube page, WBCB Sports, also on our website, WBCB1490.com. Big thank you to our sponsors, Anthony Petsis and Associates, as well as the Capital Health Systems. A reminder that we will be back on the air on the radio side, WBCB 1490 AM 107.3 FM next week, September 25th from 4 to 5 p.m. But until then, I say thank you for listening and have a great night, everybody.